Good morning, everybody. Let us start our lecture this morning. So let us review our schedule. So according to our schedule, we have one more week to discuss class and objects. So next week we will discuss what can we do? We can review, or we can review old test questions next week. But today, let me see, I have a few things. I have one thing I want to discuss today. So so you see that in our slide repository we have I'm sorry, we have one more slides, introduction to OOP part Dukes. Okay, so this part is that part 2 object oriented design and class properties. I mostly discuss this, so let us review quickly and see if we have something not covered yet. Okay, so in our previous discussion we discussed default constructor. Okay, if a class does not have any constructor, then that we say that the class has a default constructor. But if we have an explicit constructor, so default constructor is that something like this. It has nothing in it. This is default and empty constructor. It is by default and it is empty constructor. Default constructor is usually used to set up some default value for each of the field in a class. By the way, let us review what is a constructor. A constructor is a method of a class that has exactly same name of its name, right? And a constructor is used to construct or to assign values to the fields, to the class field for each of the individual objects. When we create an object, we call the constructor in order to assign values against this property, class property. By the way, at this point you should understand the difference between a class and an object. Everybody understand the difference between a class and object? Okay, a class contains some variables or fields. When we declare an object, for each of the individual object we have some individual values for each of these fields. By doing so, we are defining a complex or compound data type. So when we create an instance of a class, we create the instance that contains values against each of these fields. Okay, a constructor is used to assign values against these values. So usually where do we call this constructor? We call this constructor within our main method or driver method in order to create, when we create a constructor, an object, we call this constructor. Okay, so this is a class, this is default constructor is calling, and this is calling argumented constructor. And we discussed that a class can have multiple constructors. This concept is called method overloading. Okay, when a class contains multiple constructors, the methods must be different in terms of parameter type or number of parameters. Okay, sometimes we can have two parameters in one constructor and another constructor. This constructor does not have any parameter, but this constructor has 1, 2, 3, 4 parameters maybe. And you can have another constructor name like dog with 3 constructors, that will work. But if you give exactly same number of constructors, it will not work. you say it is giving an error. So maybe you can have another constructor without weight. So then if you say I don't need weight, so then that is good. So this constructor has 3 arguments, and this has 4 arguments, and this has no arguments, and maybe I may have another constructor that will have 2 arguments. Okay, and this is good, and this is good. As long as these constructors have different numbers of constructors, it has 3 by default, although these are same but 3, you may have number. If number is same, the type will be different. Type needs to be different. Okay, either this difference will come in terms of either number of parameters, number means 2 or 3 or 4, or type. For instance, this has all same type, so it's name, age, and boolean. These are same type. So you cannot have another parameter. For instance, like you cannot have another one like exactly same type. This will make an error, right? But you can have, for instance, maybe age you can have integer. If you say age is integer over here, so you see that these are numbers of parameters are same. How many numbers? 3, right? And here also 3. But the difference is tiny difference. What is the difference here? It is age is integer type, and here age is float type. So it is permissible. Okay, but you cannot have same type. For instance, you cannot have integer type. You cannot have it. Okay, so based on the value pass, actual parameter value for the actual parameter you pass, when you call the constructor, it will call the appropriate one. Whether if you provide an integer value for age, then it will call this one. If you provide a float value or decimal value for age, then it will call this one. Okay. So this concept is called method overloading. Okay. A class have multiple methods, but these methods must be different in terms of their parameter name or number of parameters. So everybody understand method overloading? So constructor is a method, so it can be overloaded. Okay, we discussed this, and okay, another concept is constructor chaining. I will discuss this. Okay, and then another concept is that called control of private properties of a class. We do use getter and setter. Getter method is sometimes called accessor, or setter method sometimes called modifiers, or it has another name, mutators. In some book or in some places you may see that mutators. This is called setter method. Okay, I will go through this. So default constructor is used either, so a default constructor, for instance, for my dog constructor, if I do not have any default constructor, then assume that there is a constructor like this. Okay, but we put some message so that we understood that this default constructor is called. Another way, there is another use of default constructor. If we want to set some fixed value for our fields. For instance, if I want to say all of my dog will have name, same name, exactly all of my dogs will have same name, Daisy. Okay, all of my dogs will have age, maybe 2 years, equal to 2 years. All of my dog will be trained, true, and all of my dog will have weight, maybe 10 pounds. So this is called default constructor. I am setting up some default values. So all objects will have this same value, right? Same value. So actually this is a rare case that we will use default constructor to set. I don't like all objects will have same attribute, right? Same attribute, the same value will not have same value for each attribute. Then that will be confusing. For instance, if all students in this class have same name, same ID, same age, same GPA, then that will be confusing, right? So in a real world, that is not expected and that is not possible. So even if I say, I give an example. These are two clips. You may see it from the back. You can see. So all these are same, exactly same brand, same color, same size, but these are two different objects. We cannot say that this is single object. Two different, right? Because we cannot. For these two, there is at least one different attribute. For instance, think about position. For every object in this world, there is a position attribute, right? Position value. For these two objects, although these are same, but we cannot have same position value. So you cannot put, I can put one top of another one, or bottom of another one, or left or right or another one. So if you can exactly have even two alike objects, but these are two different, right? Okay. So by default, if we do not assign value for a integer type, we know that for an integer type, it takes 0 by default value, and for Boolean it takes false, and for object type it takes null. Okay, and we discussed constructor, right? So if you write pseudocode, then you have to write the constructor keyword, okay, all in uppercase. But if you write program code, then we do not need to mention that this is a constructor. Everybody who knows program should know, who knows an object-oriented program, class and object, should know that this is a constructor. But if you write pseudocode, I encourage everybody to start writing program and practice programming, okay? So if you write pseudocode, then be careful. You see that you have begin. You have to use the word begin, and you have to use the word end class. That means class dot begins over here. So you can say even that means class dot begins here. Okay, and for create, for every field we say create, and for constructor we need to use constructor, and you have to use end constructor. To me, it is there are a lot of things to write, but writing a class is easy. It's only a few lines, but this one, right? Compared to writing a pseudocode. So this is why I discourage writing pseudocode in writing a class in pseudocode format. Okay, we discuss multiple constructors. That is called overloading. Method overloading is one of the another important feature of object-oriented programming. Okay, we discuss this, and this is an example. There is another example of circle class. Circle class. A circle has, like, in order to be a circle, it needs to only one attribute should define, radius. You could give more attributes like location, x coordinate, y coordinate, but radius is fine. And if you have a circle, then you can have circle constructor, or you can have default constructor, or you can have argumented constructor that will take the radius. Then you will have one method that is called get area. For a circle, we can get area. Okay, and if we use this second constructor, then we can provide any radius we want For instance, we can provide radius equal to 1 or 25 or 125 or 2 or whatever value we need. So circle is my class name and radius is my data field, and these are my methods, constructors and then other two methods. Okay, so I like everybody to practice programming this circle class. Okay, we have our pseudocode over here, and we have Java program code over here, and we have C#, C++ code over here. Do I have C#? Okay, it has C# also. So it doesn't have Java. Okay, it has Java. For Java and C# it's almost same. Okay, so since there is no print method over here, so Java and C# is same exactly. Okay, and another thing that a driver in procedure. Sometime we call this the method that is used to create object, that is called main method or driver method, and the class that contains the main method is called main class or driver class. So here I gave name drag main. Some people may say it drag driver, this class name. Okay, and because it contains the main method that is being used to create dog instance. Okay, so you may hear sometimes a driver method, okay, or main method, a driver class or main class. Okay, the class that contains the main method is called main class or driver class. So here my test circle, it contains my main method, so my test circle, I would say that this is my driver class. Okay, so what does it do? It creates a constructor, circle constructor, and it displays the area, and it creates another circle and displays that circle's area. That's it. In Java format, and we have code in C#, and we also code in C++. So C++ people know that we use instead of dot operator we use arrow sign, right? C++ people know that. Okay, another thing that we discuss, the visibility or accessibility mode. Okay, so visibility or accessibility mode, there are actually three kinds of accessibility mode in C# and C++, and Java has 4 kinds. So the common type is public and private, and Java has also default. Okay, and there is another type, protected. We will discuss protected later when in your next course, when you understand inheritance, then you will understand protected. Protected is in between public and private. So public access modifier is that a field is public, that everybody can see it, can use it, can change it. So if I have some properties in my class, or means a dog class, I have some properties. So if I have property, for instance, public color, so everybody, if this is my dog and it has public color property, color property is public, then what will happen? I will be able to see it, what is the color of my dog. My friends or family will be able to see it. My enemies will be able to see it. Everybody. Okay, it's open. Okay, so for some fields or some reason we like to make some fields public. For instance, everybody likes to have his name or his brand be popular, right? So in that case, name can be or your brand name or company name can be a public name, okay, but there is a risk if it is public that anybody can from outside can use it, can change it. Maybe if it has a construct, you can change it, anybody. Okay, so for public property there are advantages, but there are disadvantages also. Okay, sometimes we do not like that my property or something we like to hide or keep in secret so that nobody can know it without my permission. So if we want that someone will need my permission to see my dog name or see my dog's social security number. Although for dog we do not have social security number, but assume that maybe have some tracking number or something. Then we saw that we use two different kinds of methods. We use a secure manner to access this. That are called, anybody remember this? What method we declared for accessing private members? In our last class we discussed. Called, yes, go to your note. There are two methods. One is called, yes, setter and getter. Okay, setter method is used to set properties mainly for private properties. If it is public, then we don't need setter, right? But for public also setter method can also set for public as well as, but setter method is mainly used to set variables for public field, and getter method is used to get value or return value for that field, right? So for each private member in a field, you will have one setter, one getter. So for each public, each private member, for each private field, you will have one getter and one setter, okay? Like if I have like two, if I say this one also private, if I say this one is also private, so then I should have two getters and two setters. One for name, one getter for name, one getter for age, one setter for name, another setter for age. You see that as soon as I made it private, then there were somewhere I used directly, so I am getting an error. Okay. So the concept of making some field private is one of the principles of object-oriented programming. That principle is called encapsulation. You may hear the word encapsulation. In the word encapsulation, maybe it came from the word maybe capsule. We know this capsule is a kind of medicine that has, like, for instance, this is a capsule, right? Maybe this one. Okay. Everybody knows that we use this capsule for as a medicine, right? Okay. So that actually these are the medicine. There are some ingredients, or maybe this one. You see, there are some medicine inside the capsule, inside the plastic. Right? Like a capsule is wrapped in a capsule. Some medicine or some ingredients are wrapped with a plastic. Okay, and when we eat the capsule, we eat including the plastic, right? We eat the capsule, we eat the medicine. The medicine are inside. We eat including the plastic, but as usually we will not eat plastic, right? If I am given a piece of plastic, I should not eat it. You should not eat it, right? But when I eat some medicine, we also eat including the plastic, right? But think about the situation. If you buy some medicine, a capsule, and if you find that this capsule is leaked, is broken, you will not eat it, right? You will not take it, right? You thought this is expired, or this was used, or this is not good. So as long as this plastic is encapsulated, right? Then we trust it, we use it, we believe it. Okay, so same thing same thing in object oriented programming. We define some field as a private field and we give their accessibility, or we use this using their getters and setters. Like getters and setters are the plastic for the private members. Okay, we access those private, we wrap these private members using getters and setters. Usually getters and setters are public. So there are some few cases that we need to make getters and setters private. You will learn that later once you take advanced level programming course like software engineering course. There is a concept, is called singleton class. There may have only, sometimes we create a class that has only one object. We need to create a class then that has only one object, not second object. Okay, that is called singleton class. Later when you take software engineering course, then you will learn that. So for a singleton object, we make our setter methods as private, not public. But otherwise, in general, we make our setter methods and getter methods public. Okay. So encapsulation is one of the principles of object-oriented programming, through which data and objects, data and methods of a field of an object are tied together. Okay, like in a capsule, the medicines are tied together. Okay, like for instance in our class, so what are the data? Private data. These are the maybe name and is getter and setter are tied together, put together in order to access this. Okay, this is called encapsulation. Encapsulation is one of the features of object-oriented programming. So public and private features can be both variables and methods, applicable for both variables and methods. Okay, it can also be, this can also be for class. If your class is private, public, then it can be inherited, but we are not discussing inheritance right now. So general rule is that all variables are normally marked, should be private, should be marked as private, but methods should be marked as public. And the reason is that if we assign a variable or field or attribute as public, then there is a possibility of abuse, data abuse. Someone from outside can change my value. That we would not like this, right? So then remember that how do we change the private variables? By using mutators or modifier, that is called setter method, right? By calling setter method. Okay, here with public, private line. I discussed this in my doc class that we had some private variables and some public variables. Okay, so usually what is the concept? That again, let us review a class, an object. An object contains some variables that holds data, and an object contains some data and some methods to access those data. And when we give a definition of a class, we say that a class contains some variables and some methods. But when you give an object, then we will tell that an object contains some data, not variables. Okay, an object contains some data. What kind of data? What data? That are defined the class of that object. So you should remember that everything in this world has a type. Everything in this world, anything has in this world is a type, right? For instance, what is it? Okay, then I ask him what is it, right? It has a type. He said it is a marker, right? So everything was. If I ask you what is it? Watch. Is a watch, right? It has a type. So everything in this world that has a type associated, and that type is class. Okay. So we discussed the accessor or modifier, that is called, this is a setter method. The setter method is called, okay, setter is a method over here. So this is a method, and a method, it can have one line of implementation body, or it can have multiple lines. It can have conditional statement or unconditional statement. So as usual, it is a method or a function. Whatever functions can do, a function can do, a getter or setter method can do. Sometimes for this setter method, like there is a conditional statement in order to assign age. For instance, it is asking if age is less than 110, then we are assigning an age. But if we ask someone what is your age, then if it says 120, then we will not believe it. Then we will say, no, you are too old. So I discussed this, how to define a setter and how to use a getter method. But in my program, I had a different field name, right? It has a different. So I like everybody, so please do practice for this program, and let me know if you get any issue. Okay, and there is a common point of confusion. It's called a common point of confusion. We see sometimes it's a this or self keyword. Okay, in our programming language, Python use self, and but other programming languages use this keyword. I discussed this. Whenever we have some parameters for any method, maybe constructor or any method, we have a parameter that has exactly same name of a field name, then we use this keyword, right? For instance, here my weight has same name, exactly same name of my weight. This is the parameter. It has exactly same name of my field name. Then we assign this dot weight equal to weight. Yes. It goes for object. Okay, so how does it work? Let me tell you. How does it work? So maybe did I do an activity? So what is your name? How? And what is your name? What is your name? Jason. What is your name? James. You see that I asked same question, but I got different answer, right? So for that object, his name is Har. For that object, his name is maybe Jane. And another object, his name is Jacob. So that ensures that I say that this dot name equal to name. So whatever for this object, whatever I will assign when I create him, then whatever name I assign for him, that will be his name. And when I create him, whatever name I assigned for him, that will be his name. So that is ensured by using this keyword. If we do not use this keyword, then there is an alternative option that we have to use a different name, maybe different field name. I can say that name is in uppercase or name in lowercase. Okay, but people or programmers usually do. This is maybe a challenge for them, just maybe fun for them. They will give same name. In our real life, maybe we also do some, right? For instance, we give same name of our child, of our children name, okay? Maybe John Smith 1, John Smith 2, John Smith 3, 4. We use suffix, right? In order to distinguish a child from his parent or from his grandparent. Yeah. We could give different name. If we give different first name or last name, then we don't need to give suffix, right? But usually we like to give name as same name and then use suffix. So similar thing. Okay, constructor chaining, is there something? Actually, it is, I think, may not be applicable for you for introduction, but it is here, then let us discuss. Sometime we may need to call one constructor within another constructor. That is called constructor chaining. For instance, here this is the default constructor. Within this default constructor, if I call another constructor, this dog constructor, then instead of writing this dog constructor, we use this keyword, this. Okay, you see that here this is used as a method. It has a parenthesis, right after this. So this here, this means this constructor is calling with this value, false for rabbit and 4 for weight and name for floppy. Yeah, in Java you can do that. So I have pseudocode over here, so you can code over here. In Java it has same name. In Java we will use this, and for some time if we need to call the parent constructor, then we use super keyword, super, super keyword. But here maybe we are not going to that kind of in-depth programming. So if you see somewhere, you can implement this code. I don't have code over here, but you can implement code over here. But for instance, maybe I can do quickly here. I have dog constructor over here, right? So in my what is my empty dog? Okay. Here in my, I could call this with some values, with some name, maybe Stacy. What is my first name? Name, then is maybe 2, and then boolean is false, and what is the next one? Color, red, and what is the weight? Maybe 23. So this is weight. So by this way I am calling in my this constructor, I am calling this constructor. So instead of writing dog over here, it will not allow me to write dog. I need to use this keyword. So this is called constructor chaining, calling one constructor within another constructor. You can practice this one, okay? And that is the summary. Whatever. So far we have discussed all of the things that we need for object-oriented programming. Okay, but I have one more thing I want to discuss that is beyond these slides, but I think that is important. How many minutes I do have? No?
Yeah, it's 12:05 right now.
Okay, so in our next lecture I will discuss static modifier. Okay, I need maybe 25 to 30 minutes. Then after that we will discuss old test questions. Okay. Anyone has any questions so far?
Yeah, so when you use this dot, that's constructor chaining.
No, I don't use this dot. I use this as a method.
Oh, okay, that's completely different.
Yes.
Another question about the string override. String override, do you use
toString method overriding.
Yeah, do you use it in the main class or do you use it in the
In the class that you describe it.
got it.
In the class, not in main class.